Previously on Woodbrew. I don't know about you, but having a clean shop in the morning when we come out to work is very refreshing, especially when the floors are swept.
Hey guys, welcome back to the camper build series. In this first part of the video, I'm actually cutting down the shelf that goes in the galley. We ended up making it a bit smaller so the gas struts would have more room to fully close, and this will get finished up in another video, but I started by cutting it down to the right size.
For all of you who have said to put washers on before the bolts, you can all sleep better tonight.
One of the many miscellaneous tasks that need to be done so that we can actually finish up this camper is getting the floor finally installed. So first I'm going through and just giving everything a good sanding, and then we're going to be putting everything back into the camper, getting it fastened down with some screws, and then eventually applying some finish to it so that we can pretty much wrap up the inside of this camper, which is a big step. One of the comments we saw in the videos before is, couldn't someone just unscrew the door? And yes, but we'd always planned on going back and adding these bolts, not really for security purposes at all, just to take the load off of the screws, as this thing's going to be bouncing down the road. I didn't really want to rely on wood screws to hold these doors on, so these are getting through bolted with some stainless steel bolts and lock nuts, and this will provide a much stronger joint, but it'll also take the ability of someone being able to take these doors off, out of the equation. Not that they couldn't just break the really cheap window and then reach in and unlock it, but, I digress. It will help with the rigidity and the security a bit as well. Also wanted to do the exact same procedure of bolting down this hurricane hinge, not in all of these screw holes, just a handful of them, because a very common place that I see these campers fail is at this hinge joint, and it was a big concern of mine. So I wanted to add some through bolts with some large fender washers on the inside to be able to make sure that this hinge hopefully isn't going to pull off the back of the camper under the weight of the hatch and the gas struts, forcing sort of that hatch up and away from the camper. It's finally time to add in the wall vents that are going to provide some extra ventilation to this camper, and I am going above and beyond, sealing basically every single entry point that is possible for water. So I'm using a lot of different sealants here and things on pretty much all of the protrusions through the camper wall to make sure that they are as watertight as humanly possible. One thing to note is pretty much in majority of applications when caulking, you want to leave the underside of whatever you're caulking or sealing open and not fully caulk around it, because if water does make its way in, it won't have a way to get out. So with everything that I'm putting sealant on, it's getting sealant on the top but not the bottom. So if water does get in, it does have a way to work its way out and at least dry out and not get trapped in there, which is really what's going to cause the biggest issues. I know we're only halfway through the video, but let me give you a sneak peek of what you're gonna see at the end of this video, because I've got something important to do. Pretty sweet, huh? Now, as you guys know, iFixit has been a massive supporter of our channel, but also this series in particular. So we've got some iFixit stickers, and we've got our hatch up here. And you know what? I feel like this spot up here is gonna be a really good spot to add a bunch of stickers and things to it. As you know, you travel across the country and things, you can just put them up here. So I'm gonna start things off by adding a Fix the World sticker from iFixit, because they were a huge reason why this project was even possible. So let's get this stuck up there. And of course, iFixit is sponsoring this week's video as well. So if you guys are ever interested in fixing anything around your house, I highly recommend checking out iFixit's website, where you can pick up awesome precision driver sets like this, but as well as parts and pieces and the repair guides to go with it to repair commonly broken things around your house. Not only will you be saving thousands of dollars, but you'll also be supporting the fight for our right to repair, because it is constantly under attack. If you guys didn't know, it is getting increasingly harder and harder for people like you and I to be able to fix the stuff that we bought. And instead of being able to fix it, we just have to throw it away and go buy another one. That's extremely wasteful and also costs you a lot of money. So let's continue to fight for our right to repair and support awesome companies that are doing it as well, like iFixit. Thank you, iFixit, for continuing to fight for our right to repair, and then let's get back into the video. Also, I saw a comment about, well, you have to seal up around the vent. Yes, we just hadn't gotten to that yet, so that's what I'm doing now. And I'm using some lap sealant, which is some really just, I have to be honest, god-awful stuff here. It's just messy. It doesn't really work super well as far as like being able to maneuver it and tool it. And yeah, I was not super happy with the end results. In fact, this is supposed to be gray and it's clearly white, so I don't know why it's got a gray color listed on it. But anyway, it ended up working out and it's gonna be fine in the end. But yeah, I just didn't really like the way this whole thing worked out, and I ended up having to use my finger on certain spots to get it to blend together, because it wasn't wanting to go together. But ultimately, this thing is going to be super watertight. I also wanted to go ahead and remove all of the wood trim pieces that we put on in the last video, because those need to be removed to add finish to them, and then they'll have to be put back in order to have a sealant put around them as well. Keeping with getting everything waterproof, I mixed up some penetrating epoxy from Total Boat and applied it to the deadbolt lock area that we cut out for the doors, just to make sure they're nice and sealed up, and they're going to get further epoxy to make sure they're fully waterproofed. And then I used the extra bit just around the camper in various places. And then it was time to install the power inlet, which is basically the shore power hookup for this camper, so that you can plug in when you get to a campsite. And yeah, it was a little tricky getting this installed, but it worked out in the end. Voila! The king of eyeballers. Now it's time to get all of these EP door trim boards all sanded up and ready for finish. So Molly and I sort of whipped up an assembly line to knock these out as quick as possible. With all the boards vacuumed and prepped for finish, it's time to select our finish, and for this we're using Total Boat's Lust product. I really like this high gloss. It's sort of a marine varnish, and I really like it because there's an overcoat time of just 1 hour. It doesn't take a super long time to dry like a lot of other varnishes, so you can really put on quite a few coats in a single day. For me, in my experience, it's usually been about an hour and a half or so before I'm able to actually recoat with our humidity levels here. But yeah, it's still super fast finish drying, goes on really, really well. If you're going to go for a matte finish, then you want to start building with the high gloss and then do your last couple of coats with the matte finish. We decided just to keep it with this high gloss though. Kind of like the way it would look, and it's not something that we would normally pick, but it kind of is a really good contrast against the highly textured bed liner on the camper. So with that out of the way, Molly is jumping inside and starting to apply all of the Halcyon clear finish to the inside of the floor camper, and I'm adding some extra coats onto those EP boards while she does this.
It is a new day. I'm about to put the third coat of this Halcyon. I'm about to put a third coat of Halcyon on the floor. Dylan has, well, they're a little stuck. All the trim pieces looking really good. So hopefully today we'll be putting those on, but I'm just going to start with the floor.
I think I broke my knuckle. Maybe 2 knuckles.
That is swollen.
Plastic sword incident. Classic. Now I was browsing the hardware store trying to figure out what sort of sealant I was going to use for the rest of all of the parts and pieces on this camper, and I settled on this clear silicone-esque type product. I really don't actually know what it is. It says that it works like silicone, but it's paintable, it's crack proof, it's good down to like below freezing temperatures, and it looks really, really rugged, so we're trying it out. And with it, we're going to be sealing up basically all of these EP boards around the edges, as well as all of the lights and other sort of things that are going on the outside of the camper that need to be sealed. Went with this clear. I wasn't really sure how that was going to turn out, but ultimately in the end, I'm glad we did because it really does disappear.
Repeat what you just said. What are we doing?
We gotta take the hatch off.
We're gonna die.
We're gonna make it.
So,
I got faith. The last big hurdle of this camper project is finishing up this hatch. And boy, this hatch just turned out way heavier than I really was anticipating. It is super strong and it works well, but it's quite a bear to get on and off. And it's really awkward because it's just high enough to be really uncomfortable to lift. So yeah, it's not the funnest thing to get on and off, but we did manage to get it off this time inside the shop, which is pretty impressive. And yeah, it's time to move on to finishing up this hatch, which has been a long time in the making. We're going to start by running all of the wiring for the lights and various things inside of this hatch, and I'm starting by just drilling some holes through the side of the campers for the marker lights, and these are also the turn signal lights. I'll leave a link in the description below to where you can find these lights because they were fairly affordable and way, way, way better than the normal traditional sort of lights that you see on a trailer. They're all like aluminum and nicer finish and stuff, and I think they're going to last a lot longer. I also added a longer version of the same exact light to the what will be the back of the camper. It's just flipped upside down right now, and that's going to be our main tail light for the camper. Alright, so we have the hatch all wired up, which is a big step in getting this hatch finished up, and overall the camper, obviously. This has been one of the daunting tasks because there's a lot of things that I wasn't able to figure out in my model, so I'm happy to see that it sort of seems to be working out really well. So I'm going to go over a few of the things that I've done here. So basically, we're going to have plywood that runs on the inside of these main gussets here. So all of this wiring is going to be covered by those panels. Those panels will be removable to be able to service this later if need be. Also, some of the wires are not appropriate colors just because I ran out of certain colors, but this area is not an area where hopefully that'll ever be a problem. We have basically our side lights, side tail lights and blinkers on the edges over here. And then on the bottom, which is really the back of the camper back here, we have a larger one, which is actually our tail light. Now those are multi-function lights, and that kind of made my brain hurt when I was wiring this because there's just a whole lot of wires that have to be sort of spliced together. So basically the way this is working is we have this green, which is our passenger side of the vehicle of our turn signals, and this blue is the passenger side of the vehicle running lights and marker lights, and then the white is the ground. And then the yellow over here swaps places with the green to become the driver's side of that. So really it's pretty simple, but there's a lot of splices going on in there to get all of these lights worked up. Now this single loom runs all the way back over to here, and then a separate loom comes down through this side over here, which is just a white and a yellow, which is a somewhat universal color for ground and 12 volts. However, most of the things that we have are yellow and black, so I actually used yellow and black throughout the camper for a lot of this. But in here, white and yellow. Now these,
Red.
what did I say?
Yellow.
Yeah, red and black. So we're gonna have two of these lights in the galley area here. So I've got some little pigtails coming off of those 12 volt lines. Those will pop through our panels, so those won't get actually mounted in until all of that's said and done. And then up here curled up we have sort of our main wire loom, and this is going to get a transition basically from the hatch right here at the hinge, so it doesn't move a lot, into the camper and down to the fuse box. And in between here we're going to have some wire loom protecting this, but I also went ahead and sort of tied all these together with different layering of electrical tape just to help give it a bit more rigidity and chafing, you know. And then another big thing that I did was I made sure that all of these wires in here are tied back, because this thing's going to be bumping down the road and whatnot, and I don't want these wires to ever get pulled or chafed. So as you'll see, the direction of pull, there's always at least one zip tie on each side of the hole so that it can't move, right? And also we drilled 2 holes in a lot of locations to zip tie where things are going to lights and things where they could be potentially removed or damaged. Those are being tied back so that those wires aren't just flopping around in there when you're driving down the road. Oh, so now what we need to do is we need to cut and make those panels that go in here, and the hatch, other than some finish, should be done. And that's a big step in getting this overall camper complete. So ain't nothing to it but to do it.
Gotta move her out.
Move her out. Now I'm just sorting through the scrap boards that we have and getting some of these pieces ready to make our panels, which are going to be the inserts into that hatch area to clean everything up. And I was just trying to get stuff that had a similar grain pattern so it looked good across it, and trying to use up as much of the scrap as possible. And these were a bit tricky because there's some angles involved in this hatch. We could have done it in 3 separate sections, but what I ended up actually doing was just using one single piece on the bottom and actually curving it through the hatch instead of making mitered cuts along the way. It means that this is sort of one seamless panel, but it's a bit harder to install because you're having to force it down as you screw it into place. But an added benefit of doing it this way is that it adds a ton of rigidity to this hatch. Not that it really needed it, but it's adding a lot of strength, and it's also giving a really nice seamless look on the underside of the hatch.
Okay, so we ran out of screws.
I don't know what else we could run out of in this project, but I guess we're going to start working on something over here. We just need to figure out what we're going to do with this counter.
Oh my gosh.
It's always raining, always thunderstorming here. Every afternoon, I swear. Alright, here's my idea. What do you think about this? Strips of this. How the heck?
The perfect fit.
Okay. I want to take strips like narrower than this, like maybe that wide, and just do like a random brick pattern. It's like a random pattern through here, and then epoxy. You don't like it?
What does random mean?
I just mean strips, like a floor. Like it'll look like a floor.
Is that weird?
Is that weird? This is what I'll have to deal with. Goodness, every single decision I come up with. Is that weird? That's your polite way of saying that's weird.
You don't want a
All right, Miss
floor
Thing.
look to be a countertop.
Well, you got a better idea? I ain't spending no more money on this project.
Do we have something big, like the 1/4 inch big enough for this?
No. You see anything big enough? No. I'm trying to be resourceful with the billion scraps I have. Killing me, Smalls. I wanted to do a big map on here with epoxy over it, but no, that's a little tacky. We're not building a Scandinavian modern farmhouse natural home here, okay? We're building the camper.
As you can see, I got a lot of these installed and it's really taken shape. I've really liked the way that this ended up turning out. Initially, I wasn't planning on putting these panels in, but I'm really glad that we took the extra steps to make this thing look really clean on the inside.
Very nice.
Before we added in these top pieces, I went ahead and added some through bolts on the brackets that hold the gas struts. I replaced the wood screws that were there. I'd always planned on doing this because I wanted to make sure that those screws didn't get pulled out. So added in some extra bolts there. It's just going to make things a lot stronger. And then I had to cut out around this panel to make sure it would all fit around there, as well as making a cutout for that sort of umbilical cord or group of wires coming out of the hatch that's going to eventually go down to our fuse panel.
I want this guy like right there.
It was time to add in these lights, which are going to give a lot of extra light in the hatch area while you're cooking and things. And I went ahead and wired all of those into that white and yellow set of wires that I had pigtails on, and went ahead and made some holes in those panels so that we could pass everything through and everything would be ready to go when we put this hatch back in place. Made sure to get everything tied back really well, and also made sure to get these hopefully in the right spot in this hatch so that the light is pointing down in a really good spot. Time will tell how well I positioned these lights, but they can be moved a bit because I left some extra wire in there if need be.
figured it might be a good idea to test all the lights and whatnot in here before we, well, do what we already did, which was, you know, put the whole thing together. But I guess before we put finish on it and put it all the way back into the camper, wouldn't be the worst idea to try some of it out.
Yay!
Try the other one. Turn them off. My goodness.
Look at there.
They're all on.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so that is like running lights. So that's just, those would turn on if it was dark outside. Now, if we go to this guy, this is red. I mean, this is yellow. And yellow is our driver's side. So this should be bright. Yeah. And then it would be like doop, 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 doop. Wow, Dylan.
Look at you. You're smart or something.
I got one left. Hold on.
Yep.
Bright on both.
Both are on. Yep.
What a relief that all of that wiring ended up working after we put all these panels on, but thankfully it did, and now Molly's getting to applying some more Halcyon finish to the inside of the hatch to really finish this thing off before it can go back on the camper. We are going to add a little bit of bed liner in a few places, but it's pretty much ready to go. Well, as you can see, we got the hatch slid back in place, which was an absolute bear, so we won't spare you with that footage again. However, this thing is looking sweet. I just have all the lights wired up to 12 volts right now. Obviously, it's not hooked up to the truck, so these wouldn't be on. But it gives us an idea what this thing's gonna look like. I'll show you it closed as well. Pretty nice, huh? We're gonna have some latches that go across here to keep this thing shut when you're in transit. And there's still a handful of small details, which I'll show you, that we need to get done with this thing. One of which is the interface that will go on the inside of here that actually hits the seal and it actually makes it seal. And then as well as the seal that goes across the bottom, which will make contact with another board we need to add down here. And that board will also act as a place for things to not slide out. So it'll be sort of dual purpose. Obviously we gotta get our countertop sorted and figure out all that. We gotta figure out our small shelf that goes in here, and then finalize the wiring because it's kind of just an absolute mess right now of stuff, and get all that tidy and neat. But man, we are super close.
We're so close.
Like, I keep feeling like every single week we're like, oh, we're right there. But now it finally, I can like on one sheet of paper write down the list of small tasks we need to do.
So you're saying the next video we might be done?
It's a possibility. At least like good enough to take it for a little bit of a spin.
Yeah. Oh.
Like, yeah.
Oh.
So, I'm really happy that we put these panels in. Originally, I was going to make the wiring be really nice in there and put it in a sleeve and stuff and then just leave it all open. But I'm happy that we went ahead and put these panels in. The gas struts don't seem to have any issue keeping them up at all, so that's good. We're almost there, home stretch. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so you get notified when the next video comes out, because it could very well be one of the last videos of this thing getting built. And thank you guys very much for continuing to support this series, because it has been an incredibly long one that has lasted forever, and I promise to give you a handful of videos that you've all requested, such as things like how much did it end up costing, and taking it on its first little trip to see how it all performs and everything. So all of that's coming in the future. You're not going to want to miss it. But that's all we got for you this week. So we'll see you in the next one. Peace.